Alrighty, we're looking at factoring quadratics today. Our last unit was just factoring greatest common factors, which we're going to need to keep in mind with this. So, but this is just factoring, again, quadratics for this. So, all right. So if I'm looking at this, I got myself a quadratic here. Again, I know this is a quadratic because of the squared term that tells me right there that I've got a quadratic. So first thing I always look for is I make sure it's in standard form. And standard form is just going from highest power to lowest power. This one is already in standard form, which is great. That's what I want to have happen. So that's the first thing. Second thing I do is I look to see if there's any greatest common factor like we did on the last unit. So I look at 4, that'd break down to 2 and 2, 9 would break down to 3 and 3, and then 2. So there's no greatest common factor because, again, a 2 doesn't go into 9, and there's not an n in all of these. So no greatest common factor. So I can move on to the next thing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to times A and C together. The reason why I'm factoring this, just to kind of give you guys a preview, when I factor, I'm undistributing. So my answer should have like these 2 sets of parentheses here, where like we usually multiply things through to be able to get this expression. So my answer should look like this with a couple sets of parentheses here. So I'm going to identify A and C. If you guys remember our standard form, we're going to go ax squared plus bx plus c, and I know this is n for this example, but n's the same thing as x. What the point is that a is the number in front of the squared term, b is the number in front of the x term, and then c is the constant here. Okay, so a is 4, b is 9, and 2 is c. So I'm going to take and times a and c together, which will give me 8, and then I'm going to look at b. B is -9. I need 2 numbers, and this is probably the hardest bit of this whole thing, is we're going to look for 2 numbers that will multiply to 8 and add to -9. So it always has to multiply to give you what A and C is and add to whatever B is. Okay, so the easiest thing is just to think of multiples of 8. Multiples of 8, 2 and 4, or the only other option would be 1 and 8. Okay, now this one's tricky because it's got to add to -9 here. So if I took either one of these and added, that would give me 6, and that would give me +9. So the trick here is if I make both these negative here, when I multiply 2 negatives together, they'll still keep me at 8. But when I add these, it'll give me -9. Okay, so again, when I go and take -1 and I times it to -8, that gives me 8, and when I take -1 and I add it to -8, that gives me -9, which is what I want up here. That's what we're trying to do, and that's probably the hardest thing from this. Okay, so that's the third thing. We want to be able to find those 2 numbers. So my 2 numbers are -1 and -8. Here's what I do with them. I'm going to take and write them in my factors. Oops, we'll use n2 because that's what we've got here. So we're going to put our n here and n here, and then we're going to take our numbers. It's going to be minus, it's whatever the sign is, 1 over whatever a is. So this is the hard thing. You got to remember to do this. The a for this one is 4, so this is going to be 1 over 4, and for this one it's going to be -8 over 4. So I always have to divide it by a when I put them in there. The very last thing I'm going to do is simplify. Okay, if it will simplify. If I look at this fraction, 1/4 does not simplify. If that's the case, then I'm going to take the bottom part of the fraction, or my denominator, and I'm going to put it up in front of the n. So it'll look like 4n, because I'm going to put that sucker right there. Think of bottoms up here. So I'm going to take the denominator and put it up, and then I'm going to go -1. That's one of my factors. Okay, if it does simplify, then simplify it. This simplifies to 2. And so I can just write n minus 2. And then I'm done because I've got something that looks like my fraction, my factors right here, or my parentheses here. So this is my answer when I'm done factoring this quadratic here. Okay? So again, just to recap, put it in standard form. Look for any greatest common factors is the second thing. The third thing is to multiply a and c together and write b down. Fourth thing is to find two numbers that'll multiply to whatever a and c is, and then add to whatever b is. Once you find those numbers, you're going to write them in the factors, but make sure you divide it by a, and then you simplify, and then just rewrite it once you've simplified. Remember, if it's still a fraction, you're going to put the denominator or the bottom up by the end. Okay? All right, let's look at another one here. Make this a little bit bigger here. All right. So again, standard form. We're in standard form. That's great. We're going to look for any greatest common factor. 5 doesn't go into 6, and vice versa. So there's no greatest common factor here. So I go ahead and I just times a and c together. A and c multiplied together. That's 5 times negative 8, which gives me negative 40. And then b is 6. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 40 and add to 6. So again, this one probably you can get fairly quick. I don't know. But again, I look for multiples of 40, whatever this, I'm looking for multiples of that. Again, if you start writing them down, you got 2 and 20, you got 4 and 10. You actually have 1 and 40 as well. We have 5 and 8. And that would be it. One of these has to be negative because when I multiply, it has to be a negative 40. So if I choose these ones right here, because there's a difference of 6, when I add them together, it's going to give me positive 6, because negative 4 plus 10 is 6. When I multiply them, it gives me negative 40. So these are my two numbers right here. Okay, so from there, I'm going to write them in my factors. I'm going to go x minus 4 over a. So a is 5. You got to make sure you put it over a. And then we're going x plus, because this is a positive, 10 over 5 for this one. Bada bing, bada boom. We're just going to simplify it. If it'll simplify, this first one does not simplify, so I put the 5 up. I go bottoms up here, so 5x minus 4. And then this one simplifies to 2 again, so that'll be x plus 2. And that would be my two factors there. If you really want to check them, you can multiply this through and you should get what your original answer was. Okay, one more here. So one more here. I'm going to put it in standard form. We're good there. I'm going to look for a greatest common factor. There is none. The third thing we're going to do is multiply a and c together. A is 1 here, so 1 times negative 3. So a times c is going to give me negative 3 when I multiply those. And then I'm going to identify b. B is negative 1 here. That's what I get for this one right here. And so I'm going to go and look for two numbers that multiply negative 3 and add to negative 1. So I have, let's see here, we've got the only factors of 3 are 1 and 3. And if I make that negative, that when I add that, that gives me positive 2. Or if I go here, that gives me negative 2. If you ever have this situation, okay, where you can't find two numbers, those are the only two options that I have. I'm just going to say that it's not factorable. And I'm done. So you can't factor that one right there. That's what it is. Okay. Okay. So guys, if you need to, again, if it doesn't factor, then you just say it's not factorable. If it does, then you just carry on with this. Okay. There's one other thing I guess you guys should be aware of. Look at this one. If I had like x squared, let's say plus 2x minus 3. Okay. And I went to factor this again. A times c is going to give me negative 3. B is 2, and I'm looking for two numbers there. That would be negative 1 and 3. So now this one is factorable. When I go to write my factors, I have x minus 1 divided by a, which is 1. When that occurs, you really don't need to even divide, but when you divide, because 1 divided by 1 just gives you the exact same thing, okay? And then the other one I'm going to have, again, look at what happens here. I go x plus 3 over 1. Again, dividing by 1 does not do anything, so this is just x plus 3 is what you end up with that, okay? So just be aware of that. When a is 1, it doesn't really change anything. You don't have to do like we did on this one where you've got the 5 and do that. So those are kind of the two unique situations when a is 1 or when it's not factorable here on the left side as well. Okay? All right. This has been your Math Moment with Money. Adios.